Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about my Age of Craft armor commission.
The Neon Knights Armor Review.
So before we get into the armor review, a few things about me. I've been a HEMAist for 8 years now, roughly. Just recently started getting into armored combat, a little bit of Buhurt, but I really want to focus on Harnischfechten, but we don't really have anybody that does Harnischfechten around here, although other HEMA schools are now building up their armor combat area, so perhaps we can all get together and kind of do this at some point, do some Harnischfechten and stab each other to death. So the armor that I had commissioned was made in the style of Claude de Vaudrey's armor. He was a Burgundian knight under Maximilian's reign. And the first time I saw this armor was in Adam Savage's YouTube video where he visits the Met and goes to see the Last Night exhibit. And seeing Claude's armor, it was really inspiring and cool. I love how visually simplistic it is, although it looks very powerful, very tanky. The addition of the tonlet, which is the steel skirt, just makes him look like a Dark Souls end boss, right? And I was like, I'd like to try that. Let's see how we do. And so I commissioned this armor. All right, so we're gonna start with the gauntlets. Okay, these are Milanese mittens with steel fingers, and they are tempered spring steel, 1 millimeter thick. They go for about $5.15 US, and they're very protective. I've used them a few times. I wanted to get these reviews done before my armor gets completely wrecked. I mean, I keep trying to keep it clean and all that stuff, but you know, it gets scratched and cut and dented. But here you go. So these give you about that much range of movement. So if you needed to grab somebody, you probably could. You can't open all the way, which is fine. And it's got a good grip. They feel nice. Age of Craft did a great job getting my sizing exactly right. These gloves fit like a glove, but and yeah, they're really nice. They give you a lot of wrist movement. So when you're doing a zerk, you can move, you can cut, you can do everything you need to. And there's a really good thumb protection here. So even if a blade comes down underneath, let's say you're holding a sword like this, blade comes down, it will still be protected. So I give them a thumbs up. And one quick note on my right gauntlet, as you can see, it has taken a few dents. Now, I had fought somebody with a mace, so that is to be expected. I mean, it's pretty minor, but you can kind of see right there some of the scratches. And I'm right-handed, so this is my sword hand. So, I'm blocking with my hand in some cases, right? Or throwing my blade out there to hopefully catch the mace. But I took some shots to the gauntlet. So there you go. Minor, but to be expected. Next up, we have plate arms of the 16th century. These go for $5.70 on Age of Craft's site, and they are unique because the arm cannon is completely enclosed, protecting your bicep and tricep, and the mounting point is at the back rather than on the side. I like these because when I close my arm, the arm cop closes and there's virtually no gap, right? On the inside, there's just a little teeny bit, but not bad. I suspect if somebody tries to stab me with a rondel dagger and they're coming at me towards the front like this, or I give them the side of my arm, there's virtually no way they're getting it in there, which is kind of nice. Now, on the sight, this part of the arm has a pin that when you close the arm piece, the pin will be here and it will lock it in place, right? 16th century style. Now, I suspect they didn't do that on the later models because maybe, when they did tests getting hit, this thing popped out, and we don't want that in an actual fight. So having the straps on here are just much safer than it would be, and it's a nice feature. So you may be asking yourself, why is there a hole here? Well, that hole is because Claude de Vaudrey had some cool drip. And that is, the man liked a good spike. And so this is removable spikes that I have asked Age of Craft to create and add on to this armor in the style of Claude de Vaudrey. So if you look at his armor, they often show one of his arms having the spike to promote that he wore mismatched armor. But there is a second one of these. They're just not putting it on the armor. So he does have two arms like this. So I had two arms made. And these are easily removable. There's just a bolt on the other side. Let me see if I can show you. So it's a bolt, and the washer goes on the outside, right? And there you go, super easy. Now I keep those in for when we're just parading around, promoting, or if it's on display in my home. But in fights, obviously you can't do that, somebody will get killed. And also you don't want to accidentally fall and stab yourself in the head. Next up are shoulders of Frederick the Victorious. I love these. These are one of my favorite parts of this armor, minus the cool spikes on the arms. These shoulders just look epic. They're enormous, and they will give you full protection. I suspect these are going to be very good in melees, right? I don't do melees because I value my knees, but I think they're really cool, and if you want to look like a knight, I would go with these. These are very similar to Claude de Vaudrey's. He didn't have this rondel and everything on the front. I asked Age of Craft about the shoulder armor, if they would make it, and they said, you're not going to be able to move because this is for jousting. Although it was foot combat armor, I think the way they thought they were going to make it, it wasn't going to function. Where Claude's armor, I suspect there were leather back here, which allowed this to compress more so. So when he lifted his arm, he could lift it and have more movement than this does. This has pretty good movement. It folds in the top half, and it collapses pretty well. So when it's on your body, you can lift your arm up this way. However, if you're gonna throw a punch, and this depends on where you mount this to your armor. So when I got this in, I did not have my cuirass or my gorget yet. So I wasn't sure where I was going to mount this. So I'm just gonna kind of place it over my arm right now. But if originally I had it mounted to my helmet at the time, or the aventail of my helmet, and what happened was when I threw a punch, this thing would come up and whack the helmet. Now before I put the helmet on, I had it mounted to my arming doublet right on the collar, and I almost knocked my teeth out of my mouth when I threw a punch, and it came up and hit me right in the jaw like that. It did not feel good. So with these, you kind of need them to be mounted lower. And so on my armor, I have them, as you can see in the background there, they're strung to the straps of the cuirass, and that seems to work really well. And I chose so if this is the front, holes, if we're counting backwards, 4 and 5 to mount, so the weight kind of tilts forward and everything kind of stays in place. That works for me. And so it works really well when it's like that. It protects me, and I can move at that point. You can see now when I'm punching, right, it's not, this edge isn't hitting me in the face. So that works really well. These are beautiful, great. I mean, I have really once I figured out how to mount them, I had absolutely no complaints. They're very protective, very strong, and they look amazing. Now, if I wanted to look like Claude de Vaudrey's armor, I would just, if I had this on display and was going the full Claude de Vaudrey, I would just turn it around, because this looks very similar to what his armor plating looks like for his shoulders. And no one's gonna see the back, so, you know, maybe you could get away with some stuff. So, there you go. Those are the shoulders. Highly recommend them. They're beautiful. get yourself a pair. All right, next we're going all the way to the floor with the Sabatons. All right, my Sabatons are 16th century style Sabatons, and they fully enclose the foot all the way around, not the bottom, of course. They have a leather strap that goes underneath your boot so that you don't have the ties on the top, and they come all the way around and they latch with a strap. They are extremely flexible and can compress very well, like so. Now, I think these are great. On the website, you can't buy, these were custom, but I paid $3 something for these. On the site, you can get Sabatons for like $220-ish. Now, I really love these, and somebody, no matter where I go with these, people comment on my shoes. Why do you have square feet? Why this? Why that? It's pretty funny. And well, it's because, you know, I'm going for that 16th century look in some cases, and I think these are really neat. I had a problem with my left foot, and that is because this piece here wasn't trimmed fully, and so there was a literally, wait a minute, is this my left foot? No, it's my right foot. On this one, there was about a ½ inch that was too long. So you can see, well, you can see it better on this side. Hold on. So you see right here how much metal needed to be taken off all the way around, because when I stepped, that piece of metal was just, if this was my foot, it was just crushing into the bones of my foot. It did not feel good. Now, Age of Craft makes amazing things. With any armor, you have to adjust something on it, regardless, right? Nothing's ever 100% gonna fit you unless you lived wherever they're making it and they made it on you. This was absolutely amazing. Nothing against them. They did a phenomenal job. I don't mind adjusting just some minor things like this. That's cool with me. So I love this. These Sabatons are great. They work very well. They fully enclose the foot, and they do a very good job. And I'm still nimble, or as nimble as I can be. And they sound really cool. So, all right. So we have the plate greaves next. These go for like $318, and I mean, these could be 15th or 16th century, I believe. And I think they're beautifully made, as everything else was. They have a little hook on the bottom here, so when you have your cuisses on, that strap for the cuisse can go around and connect and kind of hold this up off your foot just a little bit. And it also keeps it kind of neat where it's not flipping over your calf here, and then it latches on the inside. And I love that we have the ankle bone showing. It's very pretty. These are very, very pretty. I don't have much to say about them. They work. They do a great job. I run into one problem on my left side, and maybe I just have a shorter leg on my left side. I don't know what the problem is. I'm still trying to figure this one out. So more tests are needed. Oh no, I have to be in armor just a little bit more. But when I'm using these, let me show it like this. When I'm using these, right, I'm walking around, I'm doing my thing. I tend to push off with my left foot. So when I come back, sometimes this greave ends up inside here. And that's a problem, but it's only on my left side. And I don't know why. And so I have to have somebody come and pop this out so that I can actually function again. It's happened 4 times already. I've worn this armor twice. So during different bouts, it's happened 4 times. Now, I don't know exactly what's causing that. I measured these on both greaves. I mean, I put them together. They are an exact mirror. I mean, as exact as it can be, mirror of each other. I mean, nothing is really different. The length is right. Everything is right. So it may be just a problem with my body. So I don't know, or how I'm moving, perhaps. So it's kind of interesting, and it's just one of the many things that you got to figure out when you have armor, new armor, and why is this happening? But here you go. Here's the plate leg. It's very pretty. And it fits perfectly. All right, and next we have the cuisse, right? Oh, hold on. These are cuisses from Milan. They go for $6.45-ish. And they're absolutely beautiful. The reason, well, a few of the reasons. These look very close to Claude de Vaudrey's leg armor, although his greaves were actually just a continuation. So the legs were just like one unified piece. I do love the way this curves in here. And I don't really know what that piece is called. But it curves in, which is nice. So if you're going to attempt to trip somebody, your plates are not going to interlock with theirs. And then you either get your strap cut or ripped off of you, or somebody gets injured. And it really protects the inside of your leg. And then these are straightened on the site. They show them curved, but I suspect this is to prevent dents, like easier dents, right? If it's just a curved surface, it can dent easier than something that's more rigid like that. And they're fairly light. I don't know the exact weight. I honestly don't, I mean, you know you're wearing armor, and I've worn some armor where you know you're wearing the legs, and it really works your hip flexors out when you try and lift your leg up. These feel much lighter. And maybe it's because it fits me, it's made for me, and it just feels like a second skin. You know there's a little bit of weight on there, but it's not that bad. And the other reason why I really love these is because of this section here. So I do a lot of kicks. I'm a martial artist. And this area allows for flex. So you don't have this piece of metal jamming into your hip flexor every time you try and kick. This flexes. So when I kick, I can extend my legs straight. And everything just gives, which is just excellent. So this is what it looks like. Full view. And this does open up a little bit, although it doesn't really need to. I mean, it's just minor. It just shifts. I think with your thigh, when you go to crease your leg, right, your thigh muscle will expand, and this will extend just a little bit if it's not tight and super tight. But yeah. And then you got your 3 mounting ports here. Yeah. So it'll connect to your landaulier, or in my case, I just bought a weight belt, which keeps my spine intact, and then everything can mount to that, which is very nice. Next up is the gorget. So this is the gorget. On their site, you will see it with buckles and straps here, but because of my cuirass, it would be better if there were no straps, because it'd be straps on top of straps, and that would be very uncomfortable. So we have a locking mechanism here, like so, and it hinges. And then on the inside, I have blue felt to stop from scratching up my armor. And we have mounting leather here. However, I don't use this mounting leather. Typically, you'd put your own holes in, and the shoulders would come off of that, but these are too far out for my shoulders, so my shoulders mount about here, so that there's no giant gaps in them. And it'll protect your neck from getting crushed. This has got a nice tilt, so it's not hitting you in the throat. And typically when you wear these, right, when you lift your arms, everything hits you in the throat. However, what some people don't realize is when you have a cuirass on, it's pulling all of that down. So it will not hit you in the throat, especially if it's actually angled. So when I lift my arms, and I do have a very good range of motion when I have my cuirass on, it works very well. And it's very protective in case, you know, my helmet comes down, but in case something gets underneath that, at least I have another layer of protection, which is very important. So there you go. There is the gorget. And I forgot to mention that the gorget goes for $225 on their website. Now, before I get into the cuirass and tauntlet, I wanted to talk about my helmets. One of which is from Age of Craft, another is from a different smith. So let's get into those before we get into that. All right, let's start with the Bassinet Spilento, which is a 15th century style helmet. This is from Age of Craft. And I got this secondhand off a buddy of mine. This was one of my first, actually this was the first Buhurt armor that I ever purchased. And he gave me a very amazing deal. So this helmet goes for $650. I got it for $200 with a whole bunch of other stuff. So he was very nice, and he wasn't going to use it, and he gave me a very good deal on it. Now, since I got it, I did a few things, polished it. I also added extra bars here, like there's these 3 bars and 3 on the other side are welded in. I was going to use this during HEMA so I could practice a little more with it. However, the gap is still there and a sword could get through, so I never ended up doing it that way, other than just blocking my vision more, which is great. And then I widened the holes more where my nose would be. I went through like 3 drills. I used the, the stepper drill bits, and that worked really well. And I got through a lot, and I just widened, I don't know if you can tell, but they're wider here, and then they get smaller as they go out and smaller as they go down. This helmet weighs 10 pounds, almost on the dot, and it's tiring my arm. And there's an aventail under here. I just got it tucked in. And then I also this is where I mounted my shoulder armor to try it out. And it kept hitting all over here because this comes down and sits right on your clavicle and on your back, all right, I'm gonna put this down while I'm talking, which is really good because when you get punched in the face with a shield, that force isn't transferred to your neck, and so it transfers down into your chest. So I highly recommend that helmet. It's very good, and because obviously it's in a V, it can deflect hits a bit better. I really like the helmet, and I love that there's a button up here where, let me show you. There's a button up here where you just push that in, if I can, hold on. You push that in, and while you're wearing it, you don't have to wait for somebody to unstrap you. You can just lift it up, and you can have your air. Because after 3 1-minute rounds of fighting, you want to get air as fast as you can. So waiting for somebody to unbuckle your helmet while you're dying in there, it's important to have this, and it just closes and you're good to go. So I really like this helmet. I highly recommend it. It's very strong and it will help you out. All right, so my next helmet is from Maxim Saprovich of Wild Armory. This I got off of a friend of mine. Thank you, Colin. This retails on his site for around $900, and it is a beautiful helmet. I believe it's 16th century. This is modeled off a helmet that was found in St. Paul's Church. I don't recall when, but it's beautiful. Now I'm going to attempt to do this with one hand here, but I like that you can push this button and pop open the visor and be able to breathe, or your squire can do that. And you have these bars, which you can see now, that protect your eyes. And then this also opens up by unlatching the hook and pushing the button here, and this will open so that your squire can strap your chin in without having to touch your sweaty neck meat. What I don't like is that on the earlier versions, which this is, of the helmet, he has recently fixed this, is that there is no latch here. So when you're fighting someone that has a shield in their left hand, they're punching that button almost every time. And so that will pop the visor up just a little bit. And it's super dangerous. So there should be a hook. On his later versions, there is a hook. I think this is the second one he ever made in this style. And the first two versions don't have the hook, where the rest of them do. Still love the helmet. I think what I'm gonna end up doing is drilling a hole and putting a cotter pin through it for when we spar. And I'm also going to add a plume holder either here or have one up here that I can unscrew for when we go fighting. Now this helmet comes in at 13 pounds, and since it wasn't made for me, it doesn't sit like on my clavicle and my trap muscles, right? So all the weight is on my head and on the back of my neck. So the neck muscles back here are like fully engaged the entire time and get worn out like pretty quickly. So I either got to do more neck exercises or take this helmet off in between fights to survive, because it burns bad. Oh, and one other thing, I also put in more blue felt so that when it rubs up against my armor, it doesn't constantly scratch. And you can see the padding on the inside. Now, to the padding point here, with all my helmets, I bought I don't know, I forget how much it was on Amazon, $30, $17 to $30, what's it called? Scrug, I think they're called, for, not highlight, whatever that game is. Shoot, let me get back to you. Lacrosse. So it came to mind as I was looking it up. So a lacrosse cap, and that really does help. It's just enough padding, and you're wearing that and you're wearing that padding. It sets everything nice. It keeps it on your head, so when you move your head, your helmet moves. If you're able, like my 15th century helmet wouldn't move like that, but it protects you. It keeps everything locked in. So even when you're getting punched, the helmet's not coming and hitting you in the face or in the jaw. Of course, having your straps properly set is very important as well. I didn't mention this, but in the Age of Craft helmet, it has two straps. It has one that comes from the back of the helmet that goes around your throat, and it has one that comes from the top that goes around your chin here, to keep everything from moving. And it's very nice, and if you don't put those on properly, you will get hurt. So always strap yourself in properly. So on to the final pieces, the cuirass and the tauntlet. I'm going to do this standing up. This is the cuirass and tauntlet combination, and here is a front and side view of it. Get the back for you. I feel like the back of this is absolutely beautiful. Let me see if I can, because I definitely don't want to stand here holding this thing up. So let me see if we can wheel this to you. So I'm sure if you look on Age of Craft's Facebook page and Instagram, you can see better photos of this. Of course, I don't have it all strapped, but it is mounted. I love the curves we have here and the latches on the back. Let me see if I can get this moved in a little more. You can kind of see all the different latches, and they would come in. So these two pieces, and I'll take this off and show you, these two pieces unlock from each other. These will come in, and then everything, see these little diamonds, these are standoffs. So when this is closed, it closes around all of these spikes, and these spikes go through the hole, or the standoffs go through the hole, and then this gets latched on. And then there you go. You're strapped into this torture device, which looks really cool. I figured I'd start it up again now that I got most of it unlatched. The buckles are, since they're new, they're very difficult to unstrap. So then this, you would just kind of stretch the metal, and you know, it's easier when someone's inside it. And then this would disconnect. So we have the cuirass, which looks like that. And this has a small, it can pivot just slightly, not enough to really do anything, but it does pivot. And if we were to unlatch these, you can see how this will come apart, like so. Now it will come apart more if I undid these straps, of course, but I don't feel like. So here you are, and then I put arming points here so that I can mount my shoulders to this once it's all together. So that's what that looks like. Fairly light, this piece. I don't know, I'm not even gonna guess. But it fits very well. And because they made this curve in like they did, I gave them my measurements. When you give your measurements to your armor, if you don't know, it's very important to do this, right? And give them the distance here so that you can actually hold a longsword and maneuver, right? Now, onto the tauntlet as I trip. So the tauntlet is kind of a pain in the ass to pick up, but here it is. It's kind of hard to show. I'm trying here. So this is what the tauntlet looks like, and it will just close like that onto itself. It can also open up, and then you just walk right in. And then you have some, you know, you need at least 2 people for this, besides yourself, pushing and trying to get it all closed. It's quite the fun experience for everyone. Now, I have a few comments on the cuirass and tauntlet together. Cuirass, when I wear the cuirass, no issues. Now, with something as heavy and complicated as a tauntlet, there's bound to be something, right? So with the cuirass, originally, Age of Craft, even though I sent them visuals, I think there was a lot going on, and my natural waist is here. So the cuirass should technically have been here. Originally, it was at my normal, my hips, right? And that wouldn't have been good because I wouldn't be able to move or bend very well without this thing hitting me in the throat, right? So I had them adjust, and they were gracious enough to do all the adjustments, not only with this, but with the tauntlet. I mean, it was a lot of work on their part. And so they did the best they could to get this exactly at my natural waist, which they did. The only downside is that it's not as tight around my natural waist as I would have liked. It fits beautifully with my arming doublet. It's not very big. Don't get me wrong, it fits nicely, but what it should have been was it should have sat on my actual bone here and squeezed here. So the weight was distributed from my trap muscles over my hip bones, right? But it's not. So when I have the tauntlet on, all that weight is literally just sitting on my trap muscles. And over time, that really gets exhausting for the trap muscles. And so you're trying to move, you're trying to fight, but all this weight is just pressing down, and it becomes just heavy and annoying. And so I have to sit down in my tauntlet for a minute and relieve the weight. Now I've put foam padding, I've put foam and felt, I've done different combinations, and it'll relieve it a little bit, but not completely. So I think when I do Harnischfechten, I mean, that's what this is for, right? The tauntlet is for Harnischfechten. I'm not going to take that into Buhurt. One, because I think my biggest issue is, you know, we pay a lot of money for armor. If I get knocked down, I'm sure those hinges are going to be obliterated. even though they're extremely well made, tempered, dude, you got a 300-400 pound dude who takes you down, you're done. Though that skirt is gone. So I don't want to get that seriously damaged. So that, and plus you can't kick. I can lift my legs to a certain point. I can kind of give you a tiny demonstration here. Let me see, how am I going to do this? Well, right, so it'll sit around here, and I can lift my legs about that much, right? So your movement is limited. But, so yeah, that's only for Harnischfechten, and this is only the cuirass I wear for Buhurt as well. All right, so this is what the armor looks like mostly set up. I showed it without the tonlet. You can see how it comes to the natural waist, right? And that way you can see the legs. I don't have arms for my mannequin anymore. I don't know where they went. So they're kind of dangling there on fabric right now. So that's partially why it looks a little weird. But you get the overall look. I'll post an image of me in it. I've only been in the suit once, or twice, but once with the tonlet and then once with this helmet. And this is with the tonlet. I'll tell you what, it was a lot of effort to get it on there with no help. So here's the tonlet. It's a little pushed forward because I have it up against the wall, but the general look is pretty sweet. I mean, you look like an absolute tank. So thank you for viewing. I hope this helped you in some way. If you are new to Buhurt, new to armored combat, Harnischfechten, HEMA, whatever. If you're a seasoned professional, hopefully I didn't embarrass myself. And, you know, thanks for viewing, and I appreciate your feedback. And just keep fighting, guys. Night, ignite, unite, unite,